Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Strategy, Growth and Community Committee. This Thursday, the 12th of December, not long till we Christmas, and this is our last official kind of meeting before for 2020. Exciting. We have already seen karakia this morning because we started with a public excluded workshop item. So we won't need to get into that. So we'll get straight into the agenda. There is no apologies this morning. We're all here, which is great. Do we have any conflicts, declarations of conflicts of interest? Okay, so we're into the standing orders. The recommendation is that the following standing orders are suspended for the duration of this meeting: 21 through 21.5 and 21.6. And this is also that we have a brilliant Frank in our meeting. So can I have a mover for that, please? So June, second, Councillor Whitman. That's all those in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay. Confirmation of the minutes for the Strategy, Growth and Community Committee meeting on the 17th of October. I have a mover for those minutes. So mine hands. To Taylor, all those in favour? Aye.
That sounds good. It says Mayor Brett Muggeridge, but my coup isn't working.
I saw that
We'll blame them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Left my group. Oh, there's two. Yes. Okay, item 6, report section. So resolution monitoring report. Right.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair. So look, 4 items on there. I've taken the liberty, and you might say otherwise, to show a couple of these items as completed, in particular noting the establishment of the Hawke's Bay Water Trust. There was a subsequent resolution from council where there's an action sitting with that resolution, and also completing Streets for People program outcomes, and basically looking to transfer that into the program. Otherwise, just basically the resolution will sit there for the next 2 years. What I would like to do, though, please, Madam Chair, is just invite Mr. Muggeridge up to the table just to give us a bit of a brief update on the Freedom Camping bylaw, and in particular where we have operationally got to on the camping policy on that item. So.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Madam Chair, good morning, and good morning to the committee. Yes, we said, well, council, when you made the bylaw back in June, you also tasked officers to work with the Parry committee and the community to develop and essentially operationalise a policy to ensure that there's a fair and transparent campsite allocation process for the peak summer season at Parry, and we also said that we would come back to you to give you an update on how that's gone. Over the spring months, we worked with the community out there and the committee to develop this policy, and I'm pleased to be able to report that we have landed on a place where we have an agreed policy for this summer. The policy seeks to achieve 4 key objectives. The first one is to ensure a fair and equitable allocation of sites during the peak season. Second, to prioritise camping opportunities for CHB locals, as was the direction from this table and was reflecting our camping strategy, actually. Number 4, to maintain an effective relationship with the camping committee and the broader community to support the management of the peak season, and also to provide for the committee to take a kaitiaki role in the area supported by a local hapu. There's 2 main features in the policy. The first one is for certain periods of time an allocation of campsites that is made by the committee, and then an allocation of campsites that is made by council officers. And for this point, when council is allocating sites, we've established a new ballot process that is run through a computer generated system, randomised to ensure that there is fairness, transparency, and a fair chance for everyone to get a site. We received a total of 206 applications for the 7 weeks that the season's open. Taking out a couple of duplications, we ended up with 197 applications 102 were from people outside of the district, and 95 were from CHB locals. So my team has run the ballot process for the allocation of the sites. Through that ballot process, we have allocated a total of 107 sites through the season, which is quite a high number. And out of those 107 sites, for the what I'll call the peak season from Christmas to basically the 10th of January, essentially all CHB locals, the sites have been allocated to CHB locals, which is really positive. And the other important point to note is this ballot process has actually enabled us to offer a campsite, albeit not necessarily for the times that were requested, but to all 197 applicants. So all 197 applicants have received either a phone call, an email, a text, or both, to or all of them to be offered the chance to camp at the Paria Beach location. That was my update. What the policy also talks about is making sure that we take on board lessons learned from this season. So my team's going to be focusing on implementing this over the course of the next 3 months. But it's to get back with the committee in particular in March to do a bit of a lessons learned exercise and see how the season went. I'm happy to take any questions.
Don't we love numbers?
It's good.
Yeah, it's you. It is you. Okay, questions? That is wonderful, and with the increased demand on the infrastructure out there, we have to put additional infrastructure. I'm just wondering, moving to the koha system, are we confident that's going to offset the cost of infrastructure, because it's going to fall onto the Central Bay ratepayer when you're to
Through the chair, so we aren't actually increasing the amount of infrastructure that we're putting out there. If anything, we're decreasing it. So looking at things like Portaloo facilities, we're going to reduce the number of facilities. We're making a really strong push in terms of encouragement to take away rubbish, to bring water, and to where possible reduce the impact on the council services and facilities. In terms of the donation system, the koha system that you talk about, proof will be in the pudding. I know that we're, in terms of all of the confirmation emails that were sent to people who received site allocations, there's a line in there that strongly encourages donations to be made. And on the signage that we're putting out there, there's also a QR code for people to be able to donate. The quantum will be able to work out once the season is over, basically. What we also know is that the Motor Caravan Association works really closely with their members when they advertise public freedom camping areas to encourage donations where possible. But again, I'm not yet able to comment on how successful that's going to be.
First of all, I just want to congratulate you guys for that period of 7 weeks. Christmas to the 10th of January, all CHB people, and I think it's huge. The community spoke of that, so it's massive that we are to do that. Just in terms of the kaitiaki role, has that been allocated to someone? Is that a committee one first and foremost, and has it been allocated?
Yes, so through the chair, there aren't any appointments at this point in time, anyways. What we were trying to achieve through this is to recognise the long-standing partnership that we have had with that committee to support the management of camping. Whether or not there's a more formal process, I think it'd be good to go through this year and then over time to work out if there's a way of providing more formality to that sort of role.
Margaret? So, do I have a move? Any against? Item 6.2, Economic Development Action Plan Progress Report.
Morning, everyone. I will take the paper as being read. So we have the Economic Development Action Plan that is due to come to a close. It was first created in August 2019 and it served us really well for the past few years. Lots of actions in there, and each of those actions fall under the categories, as you can see in the actual plan. 7 different categories, and these categories, actually I should call them pillars, sorry, are all part of the Matariki Governance Group strategy. So where we're at is that it's time to set a new action plan in place, and we recognise that we probably should have refreshed the strategy a little bit earlier. And so on an ongoing basis, we would like to be able to keep the plan agile and review it on an annual basis, making adjustments where needed to make sure we keep supporting the needs of the community. And so today what I'd like to do is to get your thoughts around what a refresh strategy might look like. Because these have served us really well, we think it's important we keep these in place. And they are water, transportation, growth and development, land use diversification, business development and attraction, tourism and skills. And within that, we would like to gather the actions for the next plan. So really keen for your feedback. If you haven't got anything today, feel free to email me and give me your ideas. With the thought that we would like to have a new action plan in place by early March. Yeah. Do we have them? Any thoughts, any questions?
So they can.
Interesting when you're talking about land use, and I think I've harped on it a number of times, but I'm really keen to look at the opportunities going forward with climate change. What are those opportunities? If we're going to get warmer, and maybe we talk about having irrigation, what are the opportunities and how can we support them going forward? Or even without water. We talk about a lot about climate change and how bad it is, but there is also the positives that we can try and dive into that.
Thank you.
That's Monahan.
Mine's just a quickie question. I see that you're going to issue a Central Hawke's Bay Pacific investment prospectus design to attract new investment. Well done. So I think that's a good idea. I know it's in the process. I was just wondering, going forward, do we have any ideas what marketing engagement would look like? How do we get that out to, will it be targeted online, portal, all things? I'm just wondering because, I mean, I don't know. It's good to bring it out, but how do we attract them and find them?
Yep. Yeah, through you, Chair. That's a really good point, and something that we do need to consider. And it's important that we keep this prospectus agile as well. So, once it's on paper, it can be out of date. So yeah. I'd love to be able to have some more conversations with you, if that's all right, just on what it could look like. Okay.
If I can just add to that, yeah. We are also really well connected through some of the networks that we have. So I know we've got a distribution list for Central Hawke's Bay, for example, which includes over 100 businesses. But Sasha and her job also spends a day a week at the Regional Economic Development Agency offices and spends a fair amount of her time sort of talking to people, networking, meeting people. And so through those sorts of connections, we should be in a position to be able to spread the message.
Madam Chair, have you got in mind a process of how we're going to get through to March? What your process you want to lead?
Yes. Well, I met with Sasha the other day I'd like to actually, well, I did sort of mention it'd be quite cool to hear from you as to like you, obviously we want to keep those 7 pillars. But there's some real obvious stuff that has sort of come up, especially in the last 6 months around those things that you could actually just hit the ground running with. But I would really like to see that we make sure that we, if we think about those pillars, and we can talk today here about whether or not we actually need to add another one. I wonder whether or not we need to add housing into this, in light of some further conversations that we'll have later on today. But basically, I would say that let's say, are we happy with those pillars? If we are, then I think it's time to get any of those thoughts and actions through to Sasha between now and Christmas, so that basically next year when they come back, that they can actually start writing a high level sort of action plan, so that we can actually get it back at the first meeting next year. And then we can just sort of sense check that it's all right, and then basically just go for it is what I would be hoping. One of the key things that I sort of brought up with a meeting that we had with the developers the other night around that business attraction, making sure that we're actually, I mean, Douglas, you guys are amazing at that, getting that money through the South Growth precinct, but we really need to turn our minds now to around the industrial area, infrastructure for the future, how we can actually attract businesses here, those sorts of things. And I think that that's certainly one area that I would have mentioned that I'd like to see them definitely start putting into the action plan. Yeah, so does that sort of sit right for you?
So, but we'll have a workshop in the new year before we get to a committee meeting in March. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I would like to see that, but we'll have to fall outside of my day, so.
That's why we have a workshop day, a full
Yeah.
workshop day every 8 weeks. So
Yeah,
that's what we need to do. We've found the time to do it.
see that, eh? Because we've got the meeting, we're doing the meeting schedule later on today, so let's make sure that we actually some time in that. Is that going to be enough time for you, Sash, to? Yeah. Yep. Up and running and humming, and everybody needs to get their ideas and thoughts into Sasha as well. That's a bit.
Yeah, I just refreshed by reading the EDA from 2019 and just reading about the managed aquifer program and those sorts of things. I was just wondering whether we could get an update. Obviously, it doesn't need to happen today. Of where we are with those projects that we've supported. Because it does seem like a while since we have received it. And maybe the almonds and those sorts of things. Yeah, just but
That would be quite cool, and the workforce workshop would be some of those ones would be great. Heather?
Yes, I had a couple of things that I can leave for an email. But the two that I did want to mention were the change in forestry, how we were looking for investment opportunities and whatnot, and that now I think that we're actually going to have to twist that and figure out how we deal with forestry at the other end. The other one was the land transport with it only mentioning the RLTP for 2021, and if no further involvement in the 2024 one, so which has been done. And so I think this really needs to not only just be workshop, but come back and be refreshed, as you mentioned at the start. Yeah, really, it's.
Do you think that adding housing as a pillar would be something that we would say? I think there's quite a few opportunities, that sit within that, especially in light of the regional conversations. Yeah.
Well, I think through Madam Chair, probably the next conversation on regional deals again. That's a nice kind of connection, but might also be some other analysis, kind of strategic growth, housing development. Basically, key enabler for the future as well.
I mean, the exciting thing about this is that the regional deals conversation which we'll have next. The thing is that all of that, whatever happens in that space, we can still actually give some clear direction and some key things that will actually happen on the ground. Yeah, this is what I love about this sort of stuff and seeing those actions. Yes, you're right, it is outdated. We should have done a refresh of this probably more than a year ago, but other things that's taken our focus sadly. But it is quite an exciting place to be in that you can actually do a refresh and a refocus and actually writing things down and putting them into an action. You can actually see things completed, which is quite exciting as well. So, you know, especially linking in that town centre development stuff as well. Those plans, community plans, those sorts of things around how we can actually get them into action. Councillor Aiken.
To see on the housing, so you get the housing, but I think also part of that project is also to look at jobs. You know, making sure that if they're going to have housing, you're going to get jobs. So I don't know how that will fit, but
Yeah.
I think that adding housing as an economic activator in here is important. But I think there is a piece of work that also has to happen between now and the end of January, and it's related to the next item on regional deals, which is that we really need your function in here to have in the business to have a really good understanding of what economic uplift opportunities are across these PO before the end of January. Because if we're going into a regional deal situation, we're going to have to articulate what economic uplift means for the things that we are clear about. And so, yes, we've got to do this, but actually that data piece around what the potential is actually really important. We're going to need that in a leadership position to both do the action plan, but also that wider informing the decisions we make on regional deals. And the other thing is that this will be timely because the current regional view on economic development is based on the Recovery Plan 2.0, which has been driving where priorities in the region have sat. But there will come a point in the next 18 months where a transition back to a more purified economic development regional strategy view will start to take shape. But if we've got thinking about what it means here first, that's really important. So that's quite helpful. And the other thing that I would like to see is that we have brought the thinking from our Tūhono Mai, Tūhono Atu strategy around partnership and opportunity within the whenua, because I don't think it's well articulated in here.
Yeah, the sorts of feedback.
The piece of work you've commissioned about land use diversification, what do you talk to me about next steps? When, how, what are we going to see? Is it public? What is it? Can you just give us a bit more?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Left Field Innovation has been brought on board to look at the study. So the study will be a comprehensive analysis of the district, looking at things like soil types, topography. It's a wide range of areas that they'll look at. And what they're trying to do is trying to find the opportunity for land use diversification. So it might be that Left Field Innovation identify that there's a particular area in Central Hawke's Bay that could do really well growing the likes of, just trying to think what we've been discussing. Yeah, safflower was the latest one. And so in New Zealand, we import all of the safflower. It's worth an awful lot as an export crop, but it's also used for oil. It's used in a whole lot of different, for a whole lot of different things. And so there is, because of the soil and because of the climate, there is great potential to be able to grow that. So this study will look at all these different types of crops. It'll understand their export potential. It'll understand water usage requirements, a whole raft of things. And from that study, we will be able to go out to community. We'll be able to have some workshops, some engagement, and see if we can really look at some options for land use diversification.
Right, timeframes?
Yeah. So I caught up with Nick Pike, who is leading the study, and they have finished the research piece. Nick's been up here on several occasions to meet with various people and come and really understand the area. He's also been heavily involved with Venture Taranaki's Branching Out, which is a very similar sort of program. And so we are hoping to see something tangible in January when it returns from, a few weeks off. So once we have that, we should be able to make our plans for our next steps and try and see if we can really maximise the value of the study.
Okay, cool. Could we maybe not today, but could we get an understanding of how the objectives have been framed into that piece of work? Because I think we get that there's lots of opportunities that could come from that piece of work if the objectives are the right way. And I don't think that's the level of conversation that needs to happen in the committee. But it's something maybe we could ask about.
Well, would it be appropriate to have?
Yes, yeah. I'll pull together what I've got, and share it, definitely.
That would be great. And then feedback through that. That'd be good.
An item, I think as we work through your review process next year as well, but it's nothing that we're trying to keep secret or anything like that. It's just really, I think, the opportunity about how we bring those things out through strategy review through early 2025. So, because you'll know that the other actions very similar to the inputs that went into the 2019 action plan, with 5 or 4 of those kind of individual reports that sat underneath them. Might have been 5. So again, a good opportunity around exploring some of these areas that we haven't probably given as much attention to the last 3 or 4 years as we could.
Would I be able to ask for some more information on the Te Ara Tipuna kaupapa?
Sure.
The recommendation that the Strategy Growth and Community Committee notes the Economic Development Action Plan progress with it. And we probably also need to add in there that we note the years what's this going forward as well.
Make a suggestion, that as we move forward with that piece of work, that actually we have a conversation with councillors about what are the actual economic measures that we want to see change on, because if we just go blanket, we want to improve the economy, it's very difficult to actually get traction. I think we need to be really clear what the evidence is of the current performance of the economy across the range of metrics available to us, and be quite targeted, because we can't do all of it. Just to make sure that we're on the right track, because otherwise our own collective interpretation of what economic development is and can be gets really mucky if we've all got separate views of what success looks like. Just wonder whether that metric.
The strategy is the Economic Development Action Plan is effectively a strategy as well. So are we actually, do you envisage actually doing some stuff on the front end of that document as well, not just the actions? Refresh.
The whole, I mean, and you've got to remember the front pages, the context of that has changed as well. So I would imagine that will be part of the entire refresh as well. And I think probably the worship's point, just, we can't fix everything. And what are the, nearly one of the 2 or 3 priorities that we really want to focus on and focus on well, nail really, really well. So, which kind of leads quite nicely into this next conversation as well around bridge reviews.
So that's really what we want to get out of that workshop. That is basically what you think they are from the, and your recommendations are, because you guys full on, and then you can't use that as a sensitive, and then we can actually make sure that we can see the things that we would like to see reflected on there as well.
That's good.
I just want to add one more piece of context. So every interaction that I am having on behalf of this council with government has got connected to it the words economic growth. And so if we are going to have a partnership relationship to move the dial on anything in the coming 2 years or maybe longer, we have to have a good grasp of what that means for us here and what's important to us. So this piece of work is, it's actually really, really vital for how we lead forward. We won't be able to achieve anything unless we've got this economic growth narrative really nailed for what it is we need.
Which leads us into the 6.3, which is an update on regional views and endorsement of local direction.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair. So again, the report basically outlines particularly the changes in regional deals. So the announcements that have come only a few weeks ago now, noting a much tighter timeframe for regional deals, new regional deals framework that outlines the approach and the structure, but also giving some really clear direction in terms of what the government's primary objectives are and their clear expectations that they want to achieve from regional deals, and some secondary objectives as well in terms of what they want regional deals to achieve. Primarily though, regional deals are about building relationships in at least a 10-year window in terms of agreement of priorities between government and local government. Maybe just jumping back to the resolutions that are sitting on the top of page 27 and just timing. What I'm particularly in terms of the next timeframes, we basically have until the 18th of December to indicate our intention to participate in a regional deal, and just looking for a resolution that's just really confirming that intention today. It's not signing you up lock, stock and barrel to regional deal and all the content that sits behind that, but in particular is saying for this side of Christmas, signalling our intention. And I'll talk very shortly about the priorities further down, but basically also seeking endorsement about some high-level priorities, and there may be other things today that we want to talk to. Look, just finalising or talking a bit further in terms of dates as well, which I've spoken to in the middle of page 28. By the 28th of February, we need to have a what's described as a light touch proposal with government. And already we've got some wheels in motion to try and get those moving. So the aim will be that for the 13th of February council meeting for 2025, ideally we are seeking some higher order endorsement of hopefully some more focused areas of priority and some outcomes in that for endorsement to be submitted as well. And just noting that government hope to have basically kind of the first regional deal MOU signed ideally before the 2025 elections, aiming to have the first deal finalised by the end of 2025 and a further 3 regional deals in 2026. Again, just probably just noting the change. One of the things that we'd previously said is that we weren't necessarily looking to go as an early mover across the region. Look, the reality is if we want to participate, we at least need to be signalling our intention to go. So just really draw on that one. Look, pages 28 kind of talk about where the, or top of page 20 or bottom of page 28, I should say, talk about kind of the areas of focus that we identified to the Minister in our briefing back in December 2023. But really, again, probably where I'm quite keen to get some feedback on, look, and I don't need the detailed feedback, but my general sense of direction are 4 potential areas which I think are aligned regionally from conversations that have both been happening at a Matariki level across the region, CEs and mayors and other partners. And in particular, if I kind of reflect on even the conversations that have been had around this table as well. So the first one being focused around infrastructure investment programs on housing acceleration, which fits quite nicely into the housing discussion we just had in terms of the ED strategy. So in particular, just trying to understand what are the potential infrastructure support or funding mechanisms or legislative relief that could be helpful for us to accelerate housing, not just here in Central Hawke's Bay. And we've got I've got an example in there in a Central Hawke's Bay context, but pretty much what that would look like for the region. The second one being about transport initiatives. And again, we've got a really great piece of strategy work completed at the end of last calendar year around regional freight distribution strategy, which has some identified opportunities for Central Hawke's Bay. We also have our 2019 report that was identified on routes that would support economic uplift as well. That was funded through PGF. So again, another opportunity for us to identify some initiatives in that. Water, look, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but again, I think there's lots of opportunities in that where we could be exploring other things such as support for land use diversification or implementing some of the short-term actions out of the regional water assessment. Lots of opportunity for us in that one. And probably the fourth component, which is actually, I think, probably out of everything across the 3 or 4 potential areas, probably the most important area actually, which is the idea of ensuring we've got a developed spatial plan for the region, which will actually allow potentially the other priorities to hang off. So again, 4 opportunities are there. Again, quite keen, Madam Chair, just to have a conversation if there's just general comfort in the sense of direction on those. If not, any other kind of, again, at this stage, don't need the detail, but probably more of what the high order direction might well be. And again, you'll get an opportunity formally on the 13th of February, and aiming also for an update on the 30th of January workshop of regional deals. Again, light touch proposal needing to be submitted by the 28th. I'm happy to take any feedback through you, Matt.
I just want to express support for the coordinated regional planning view and that fourth part there, the regional transport committee last week and talking about public transport and plans for the future. And that's really hard to do across the RCAs or the local territorial authorities if we don't have that regional planning. What public transport from here to Napier might look like, what transportation between the 2 cities the major cities might look like, right down to between Waipukaro and Waipawa. So it's really support that regional planning and just to think about it from a transport lens as well. Sorry, that was a comment, not a question.
And again, just noting like this, not your only opportunity, there will be other opportunities, but probably just recognising that in terms of timeframes, we'll be on a pretty fast camel in terms of needing to get things relatively secured and finalised for the region. And something to think a bit more forward.
I would like to see water services delivery be number 1. In some different spaces, we need to search that first, where we can do breathing in the future. And I see a letter from the minister saying that we now have the tools to have a accessible water entity and set up. We don't have the tools because we don't have the funding. So I would like to personally see even though those other things are important.
I agree totally on what you've just said. But I also think the planning framework's spatial plan piece needs to come quite early on. So I think there's a piece where we have to really specifically carve out the role of Central Hawke's Bay very clearly, which then allows us to shape the rest of, how everything else plays out, whether it's the transport links or whether it's the housing. Because if we haven't got that, we won't get equity of investment, even if we try. And the other thing is that, 2 other things. Can we make sure that we've got some good economic narrative that comes from Central Hawke's Bay, even into the first, in terms of numbers, even into the first rounds of conversations on this? And secondly, what's further process about how we're inputting, having oversight or whatever the process is between now and the 12th of February, where there's a council meeting? What other things are going to be happening in the process that we should be aware of?
So for this table, RRA, the Regional Recovery Agency, have been asked in coordinating our regional response into regional deals. At this stage, look, this is very similar conversations to what we're having or what are playing out across each of the TAs as well. Some in workshops, some in these more formal settings as well, ready to build back into kind of that wider feedback. I do know, Your Worship, that there is an update to Matariki and the governance table on tomorrow, actually. And I'm not sure what the timing for any further updates in 2025 are on that note as well. So just noting that there is some wider feedback on that as well. We'll need to think about what local feedback with Mana Whenua and other partners will need to look like also, and that may well be, again, it's great to talk about Waipukurau South Growth Precinct, but actually there may need to be some other aspects of conversations that need to happen in that things as well. So again, just probably one of the really early things is just recognising that for now these are light touch applications. We still need to be putting our best foot forward, but certainly the level of detail which need to be relative to it's a light touch too.
Great, but we need to know who's doing the work for us for Central Hawke's Bay in this conversation between now and the 28th of February or the 13th of February, which is the decision-making council meeting. Because there is that's the bit that's not visible. It's not visible in the Matariki governance papers for tomorrow either. So who and how is that happening? Is that you taking the lead? Is it Dylan, like, how is that going to work so that we know how to keep the conversations alive?
So that's between Mr. Murray.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's just a long period of time on something that's quite big.
It's huge.
But it's a short period of time too.
It's a short
very
period.
short.
It'll
We've got
disappear really
Christmas in
quickly.
there as well, and
Yeah.
before we know it, it's a little bit. I feel a little bit like that with some of the stuff that you go through the motions and you get down there and you're like, shoot, actually, I needed to have maybe engaged a little bit more on this. But yeah, I think that's going to be one thing that we will really need to do is as much as we all need a break as well over the next few weeks, we do need to be keeping us front and centre on our minds around how this plays out for us long term. It's big. It's the one way that the government is actually going to enable funding and financing for this for us in the future. Then
Funding.
no, but they're saying that with there is funding potentially
For projects.
for projects, and so this is all very much linked to that, how that plays out in an actual what proposal gets funded and what doesn't in the
And just a word of, we're all astute individuals, but just that kind of word of warning again, there's 4 regions for next 2-year window. And just again, we'll put our hat in the ring, we'll put our best foot forward as we always do. There are other opportunities that we're already kind of working through, whether it's roading funding or other things as well. So regional deals aren't the only trick that we've got our hands in at the moment in terms of funding and support for both Central Hawke's Bay and the wider regions.
thing that we need to realise that a lot of this stuff will happen in and around us with or without regional deals. So water and health services, that's going to happen. But we need to take this as a water security is going to happen, water services delivery is going to happen, all that stuff is still going to continue. But I think this is an opportunity to be able to actually put something in front of DIA that actually has the Central Hawke's Bay Committee, Central Hawke's Bay stamp on it around actually this is, and let's not be backward in coming forward and make sure that we do put our stamp forward and we do put our best foot forward. We'll actually tell our story as well. So I feel quite passionate about it. I feel like we've downplayed it a little bit over the last few weeks. We probably haven't been seeing it as the importance that it probably needs to be. And I just don't want it to get lost in the break. And the fact that, the busyness of everything else. So just
and just kind of not managing expectations and totally hear that it's an important priority. We just it's that balance of as we work through what is light touch and just again, just for us to, and we're seeing the same challenge on waters, we're going to be one of the voices in a regional voice. So yes, we've got to make sure that we get our voice clearly into the region, and we have to see ourselves in that regional deal. I'm totally there for that. We've also just got to make sure that we are regionally aligned as well. So yes, I think we're saying the same things as well. No, well noted.
I was going to say, looking at everything from a regional point of view, everything that's in here, and then figuring out how we can be like that. We're talking about the housing and putting, sliding that in there, talking about the economic, value and transport initiatives, sliding CHB in there. I think it's just, it is a regional deal. But yeah, seeing ourselves in it is important.
Just, I suppose my plea to the table is because of the role that I play, this takes a lot of time and energy for me to lead out on this at the regional level. And sometimes that is challenging at that regional table, particularly when I'm chairing that forum, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, right? And so actually this Central Hawke's Bay District Council and governance being lent in to provide support to that is really important. Because otherwise I am alone and sometimes suppressed voice because I am the chair of that forum. Okay, so actually the strength of voices that comes from here is way more vital than from any other territorial authority. So that's my plea to the table. If there is going to be success for us in having a really clear Central Hawke's Bay voice coming into this, I really, really need you guys and the council to be absolutely lent into how we get a really tight, strong, clearly articulated Central Hawke's Bay value proposition to get into this. I'm really reliant on that to happen. Otherwise, I can't promise that we can get anywhere. So I'm just putting that out there.
How are we doing that?
And so that's why I asked the question about what happens between now and the 13th of February. Because just leaving it to someone else, I just worry that that's not quite enough for us. We've got across clearly. That's just my context if we're going to get this right.
So again, like I've identified 4 higher order priorities. We've got an opportunity on the 30th. This is where Mr. Muggeridge and I will be working through some of the detail that sits behind that. I've identified some areas in there. So already in growth, there are some limited areas that we can do for growth. Waipokoro South growth, I think there are other potential future areas for additional land that could be accelerated. So again, if there's some appetite for an earlier workshop ahead of the 30th, happy to squeeze something in next week if that's the level of priority that you want. Happy to give it to that. So if we want to get down another layer, or there's perhaps a handful of you that want to be part of that conversation that helps give us that advice, happy to do that as well. So again, really today's a good opportunity. If there was further feedback in terms of some of those more regional aspects, happy to take that. But Mr. Muggeridge and I will be working through some of the detail, ideally with a plan to present that back in workshop on the 30th. As much as we say we're going to keep the asset over the Christmas break, there won't be a lot happening in that 2.5, 3 weeks of that solid New Year Christmas break. So again, happy to take other feedback or the opportunity you want to meet again next week to talk specifically about it.
Right, we'll go with the 30th.
Doesn't say that.
We'll go with the 30th.
It doesn't say that there's a workshop on the 30th in the paper as the next steps. It says the 13th of February. So even just by saying that, that's helpful.
That's all right. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you've heard loud and clear. We want to lead into this a little bit. This is really important to us, and use us. Where is recommendation that the Strategy Growth Community Committee notes the report and the timeliness set by the government. It confirms the intention to participate in the Hawke's Bay regional deal, and it endorses the approach and priorities for the touch proposal for the regional deal outlined in this report. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Taylor? So which one? Those in favour? Right. Any against? Page 45. Community emergency hubs update.
Morena, thank you for the opportunity to give an update on the community emergency hubs. I'll take the report as read and just share some high-level highlights with you in that. The first one, as you'll see in the funding, we've received another 228,000 through the lottery's DIA funding, and that's been really important to help us get a few projects over the line. The solar installation, for example, through MB is capped at 100K per site, and we've got a couple of big facilities that are just over that. So we've been able to use that DIA funding to bridge the gap. The first success story there was actually the Ellsthorpe Hall, where the solar was ready to go, but the building reports indicated the roof needed to be painted. So this gave us that extra funding to very quickly be able to enable that to happen. Last week, the heating was upgraded in the Tikakino Hall, and we've already had feedback that on a very hot 30-degree night for the school wrap up, it was very comfortable. It's been on cool, and they're excited that now the hall might be able to be used more during summer with the cooling effect of that. They've also done some testing versus the power consumption, and there's going to be some significant power savings for the Tikakino Hall. So that extra bit of finance has allowed us to do that. The other thing that's happened in the funding space that's not in the report is last month we facilitated a workshop with DIA for all our hall committees, because a couple of them were already engaged with the DIA funding process, the majority weren't. And this is about looking forward, how they can be self-sustainable with some funding. So those committees that were present are now all in the system, and 2 of them have actually done applications to this round of the community fund that will come up in it's between January and March next year. So just starting to try and build a little bit of resilience into that funding stream, because this is the one-off bulk funding that's helped us get the initial project underway. And there was community resilience planning. So this is very much a joint partnership with Civil Defence Emergency Management, with Pip Dixon leading out on that. Most of our communities have plans in draft. The first priority has been to actually agree on the new modelling template for the community resilience plans, because the flood hazards and tsunami mapping has been updated. So the Tikakino plan, which is a full plan, is going to be in final draft as of last week, and that will be going back out for community consultation, and that will give us the model plan to drop all the others into. Our coastal communities are having a smaller version of the plan, and the Whangaehu community is the first cab off the rank for that. Theirs is in draft. So we envisage by March next year, all of those plans will be out to community for consultation. The process is to engage with the community to develop the plan. They get designed and then go back out for consultation. They'll eventually land up in the report on the Civil Defence website with links back to us and links back to our welfare plan. A couple of plans still to do in terms of a community resilience meeting. We have ongoing conversations with Omakere, and Takapau is scheduled for the end of January, so those comms will be going out, and we've been having some offline conversations, and now it's time to pull all of those together. There's been quite a bit of work happening on the coastal communities, particularly around the tsunami mapping, and CEDAM are leading out on that piece. Just in terms of the hubs, so you'll see in the report there's 10 hubs up and running so far, and they have all been equipped with the basic resources. There's a little picture in there. What we've tried to do, and this is very much, I guess, the Hawke's Bay model, is being very realistic about the resources that the hubs actually need, because in the community conversations, for example, if they're going to have to cook some food, what do gas cookers or barbecues look like? The community feedback is we've actually already got those. We'll just bring them to the venue. You know, the worst thing is having things stockpiled that have to be turned over regularly in terms of consumables or don't get used. So in terms of the hub resources, on page 48, there's a little picture down the bottom which has got an orange wheelie bin, the generator, the plastic bins. And all of those items, the only consumables are the first aid kit, which some of those items have a 5-year life that have to be turned over. And the catering bin's got powder, tea, coffee, sugar. So realistically, you're looking at probably $250, $300 every couple of years in that consumable space. And that's why we've been trying to support the hall committees in terms of those funding streams. So they can, going forward, they can be self-sufficient in that space. We're not storing fuel because again, the feedback from the community was actually for that first 24 hours, we've got enough jerry cans. By then, if the hub's still operational, that will come back to our emergency operations centre and those requests for items will start coming through. In terms of the hub setup and the equipment and practices, so Pip Dixon through CDM will be doing 6 monthly audits on all the hubs in terms of just making sure the equipment's still where it needs to be. A lot of our halls are looking at what does secure storage look like. So through some of our funding, we've been able to provide funds, Elsthorpe, Onga, Otani so far in terms of just where they've needed to do some minor alterations, whether it be a security gate or build a new cupboard with some locks on to keep this equipment in. So just responding as we need that. The big piece of equipment underway at the moment is emergency communications. And this has been led by CDM because the last numbers I've heard is approximately 60 hubs across the region. That may change. But of all of those hubs operated on the old VHF radio network, that's one that's going to overwhelm the frequency. On a VHF network, it's an open channel, so you can hear everybody talking. So the move is to go to digital radios that can revert back to VHF if we lose the digital network. So it's building some resilience into that system. With a digital radio network, you have chat rooms. So all of the Central Hawke's Bay hubs would be in their own chat room. So Onga could talk to Tico, could talk to Elsthorpe, but they will also talk back into our emergency operations centre and vice versa. So the procurement for that is underway at the moment. It is a significant sum of money. It's approximately $70,000 for the resource, the entire hubs and the equipment that's needed back here in council and our EOC to be able to talk to those. There are still a few, I guess, for lack of a better term, old school civil defence radios in the community. We're still trying to find some of those. They are sitting in people's garages. They are in a box in a school that's been forgotten about. A lot of them now are completely outdated. They're not working or they need to be retuned. So as we find those, we're just looking at how they could be repurposed as well. What's happened in the radio space, because obviously then it's how do you test the radios? How are people confident in using them? AREC, which is Amateur Radio East Coast, have a MOU with Hawke's Bay Emergency Management Group to do all of that. So they are regularly testing all the existing radios in the community and in an emergency sense will come in and support the radio operation. They have extended that support to Central Hawke's Bay. There's 6 AREC volunteers here. So we're just working through what that may look like as well. And just to finish with the solar installation, Elsthorpe Hall is finished and the community have been trained in how to use that. And we've just pushed go this morning on the Central Municipal Theatre. We've just had the consent come through and the funding agreement, which is exciting. Onga Hall will be the 3rd one, and we're just waiting for a signed MOU with the Play Centre Association because the solar's on the Play Centre roof. The hall's a heritage listed building. Play Centre roof also faces north, so it's the best place for that. And working through the Civic Theatre in Waipukurau at the moment, we're just waiting for the MB agreement to come through there. Any questions at all?
And you gave the example of the Tikikino Hall, able to use obviously the funding from emergency to actually leverage and using the heaters, which is understandable now. Are we able to use the solar power to actually power up the hall? So we're actually going to be saving money in the long term with our electricity bills and stuff.
So the solar that's going in, we've determined what, if it was to open as an emergency hub like the Municipal Theatre, what has to operate in that emergency situation. So the solar won't be enough to power every piece of the hall, but the key bit will be the kitchen, the water, and perhaps one room with lighting. So
we can't use it just to reduce the cost of everyday running.
Yes, every day, yes, we can. So once the batteries are full, then it comes back into the system. There has been some conversation about whether it could be transferred but that's different power providers, and there's only one provider that currently offers that. But certainly in the day-to-day, so Alsthorp's a good example where they should see savings in there.
Savings.
Yes.
That's one hand.
Yes, just when you brought up old school radio systems, I'd just like to point out that even this certain person that's quite senior, he's got a Morse code system and his name's Jerry Greer. Come and help.
Fire season, so it's
Don't
like.
need batteries.
See that coming?
I was just speaking of the long-term resilience, I think you did bring it up, and that was sort of like the food irrigation, the cause, but that. The long-term funding for maintenance, renewal and replacement of equipment and plant, where would that cost future? What do you see future down? Where would that be set? Would it be a combination with us and the communities? Or?
So I guess there's two parts. Firstly, most of the hubs are in our district halls, and there is within the district hall budget that annual renewal maintenance budget for that. The equipment side, that's why we've tried to keep the equipment at a minimal. There's not really any capital replacements. There might be blow-in light bulbs, there might be torch batteries, which is why I'm forecasting that minimal cost. At the end of this funding for June next year, then depending what's left, there can be that conversation around what does that look like going forward? Is there, does that get invested? Do we get approval from those external funders to carry some forward? But it will be very minimal.
And through you, Madam Chair, let's councillor into that wider conversation about just funding longer term for CDM, what sits at a community level, what sits, when I say community level, not a district level as a council level, but community level. To say actually that's part of the responsibilities that we all have to be prepared as communities versus what sits at the centre as a district and what sits right at the regional level.
Yeah.
Next year, just on the revised tsunami inundation maps, is all the coastal communities getting that distributed?
Yes, they are. So I think I put an image in the report actually on, yeah. What's happened further up the line, the tsunami modelling has been updated there in terms of inundation zones. The inundation zones that hasn't been done for Central Hawke's Bay, but what has changed is there used to be a 3-colour modelling system, and if you lived in the red, yellow or orange zone, depended on when you went, that's moved now, it's all blue. So everything is a blue zone. Whangaehu is an example which we put in the report that modelling goes right to the bottom of the hill now. So the whole valley is the inundation zone. So at their community resilience hui, the other side of their hubs up the top of Cook's Tooth Road on somebody's farm. And minimal resources because everything's on site. That modelling will go away. And so those coastal communities, the DL size resilience plan, which when it opens out to A3 is the tsunami mapping. So that's, I guess, been a little bit of the hold up. We've had to wait for the mapping come through to be able to update all of the resilience plans. But there's also a project through CDM to update the tsunami evacuation signage on all the coastal communities and the blue line evacuation lines. So that's underway at the moment too.
Just wondering, so this work has moved, like we've done a huge amount of work across this community resilience planning and the community hubs, which is awesome. Part of what is helpful for us at the governance level to articulate back into the system is actually how to articulate how much coverage we've got, how many we've done, that kind of not benchmark, but something that really clearly articulates it. So I'm wondering whether it would be possible to actually have a district map that shows kind of the community coverage of the resilience plans and the locations of the hubs, so that at our level, we can see where the gaps are, and we can see how prepared they are or not, and how much further there is to go. So there's really clearly we've done 11, but the goal is 27. I don't even know what the goal is because it's not in the report, but so that then helps us join the dots at that conversation we had with Matt earlier about civil defence, about showing very clearly showing that we're already on path to get there and that our narrative from Central Hawke's Bay doesn't get lost. So governance tool and a communication tool.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. There's a mapping piece underway. Sitting alongside this is a new welfare operational plan for council. And part of that is the mapping showing exactly that. So it's all been GIS mapped, location of hubs, resources contained in each hub. So we'll be able to share that in the new year once that's finalised.
We've also got 3 in anticipation of the 27th Jan work committee meeting, that regional kind of update of what's actually been achieved over this last 2 years as well. So it'll be our opportunity as well to make sure that we can show and demonstrate what we've achieved locally at a regional level as well. So, being clear, like our primary message is us in our community, but also being able to demonstrate regionally, very similar to Matt's conversation that we've not sat on our hands, we've actually a lot of stuff into action.
No, I think these are the hubs in particular are really important, given the conversation earlier about whether it goes that way or that way. That, you know, Matt's comment about we'll see more local emergencies, likes of the Easter 2011 in a storm that only hit one part, or and I think these will enable that scenario to be better prepared. We can be better prepared for those. My question was, actually, I'll just stop there because my question has been answered by others.
Just further to Councillor Taylor is we've got the plans from most of the coastal communities except Hauraki. So in the meantime, how's the plan going with that?
So Pip Dixon has been liaising with the Porere community. I understand there was a draft plan for that community, but I can come back to you with more details when I speak to her.
I'm just mindful of the coastal population escalates something majorly in the summer, and Porere hasn't got a plan. So just, yeah.
I can come back with an update.
So, I mean, key hasn't had a plan, Councillor, through you, Madam Chair, for a number of years, but key action there and key focus is long and strong. So, in that tsunami space.
Questions? You've done a great job of keeping us updated. It's real confidence. Everything has been done to date, and I think we've star and all of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good Christmas.
Thank you, you too. Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the strategy growth and community emergency hub update. Can I have a move for that? That's a Taylor, second. That's a Bria. All those in favour? All right. I'm sorry, did you guys want to say anything? Well, we'll just give you page 51.
Probably providing dates for next year. Probably noting there's one change already for risk and assurance just due to independent member availability. We'll get that confirmed shortly. So that's moving risk and assurance from the 5th of March to Wednesday the 12th of March. And the only change there.
I just want to ask one question of the table. It's just about how we put this together is to be trying to aim for council meetings on a Thursday with the pattern that we've set up with the governance team. There's the odd time that they do appear on a Wednesday when it's a bit difficult because of particularly national level meetings like zone meetings that tend to be on a Thursday or Friday. So there's the odd one, particularly at the end of the year, that appears on a Wednesday. That's post election. But there is one particular one I want to ask a question about, and that is the 27th of February, which is a Finance, Infrastructure and Performance Committee and Transport Committee. And that one does clash with an all of sector local government meeting in Wellington. And it is currently sitting in the calendar as a Thursday, and we try and avoid Wednesdays. But just wanted to flag that as if I was going to ask for anything else to be changed, it would be that one. But I know that Wednesdays are difficult for some people, so just wanted to put that out there.
So just probably through you, Madam Chair, while that's out there, if there's appetite to change it, probably really now is the time, please.
I don't have it.
Moving to a Wednesday, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So it'd be the 26th of February.
Instead of the 27th.
Yeah, I thought our Kāhui meetings were every third month. And I see that we've got two close ones in February and April. I think the April one is supposed to be put into May. It's actually been moved forward a month instead of back.
Yeah, that one should be May, not April.
Yeah, that should be May.
Agreed.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's the Kāhui one.
I don't have a problem with a Wednesday, but it's just when meetings back to back, I'm being out of the office 2 days in a row, that I struggle with, and I see we've got that in September as well. So yeah, so we're going to have it in March, and we're going to have it in September as well, which I guess could possibly be the last time that we have an issue. So I guess it's not an issue, but yeah, it's sort of. It is tricky if you're trying to hold down a job as well.
Studying.
Also got a couple of little changes there and a few things to note.
Just for everyone to note that in July, it had been a tradition here for the last few years that July we tried not to have governance meetings to let the business start to operationalise the budgets that we would have decided at the end of June. But based on the workshop conversation we had a few weeks ago, actually, we have got a wee bit of breathing room in there around the LGNZ conference, which is in the middle of the month. But apart from that, actually, we still have a workshop in early July and we still have council meeting in that second to last week of July as well, committee meetings. Which means that you're planning leave, you now know where all the meetings are and you can plan around it.
All right, recommendation that the Strategy Growth and Community Committee adopts the 2025 council meeting schedule with a couple of amendments. Do I have a mover for that? Alex, second, Councillor Taylor. Anybody want something? All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, carried. Okay, and 54 LGNZ. Takes.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Not happy to take the report as read. That report is read.
Anybody got any questions on the reports? Would you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I just the most recent piece of activity around the financing tools and unfunded mandates. Most recently was a communication from LGNZ just yesterday or the day before around the proposed levy that we will have to charge our Three Waters customers to pay for Taumata Arawai and Commerce Commission to be our regulators. Which Mr. Tate, how much did you add up? You think that is?
86,000 into next year's annual meeting.
Which for our targeted ratepayers is we go across the connected ratepayers as a bit. And also the proactive release of cabinet documents has meant that we've got a heads up on the potential of our waste levy, which we pay to government, but then we can apply to get back for using for our waste minimisation activities is also up for grabs. So there's quite an important advocacy position for the sector on that. And I propose that we take that up and actually write a specific letter with our numbers and data to our MPs and to ministers on that. It's just continuing to expect us to do more and then get money for them to carry out their functions. So, yeah, just wanted to flag that as being something that I think is worth us.
Yeah, just reading the report, it's clear how much work LGNZ is doing. And it was interesting also to read, you know, you don't think about it, but your PAYE goes out on a weekly, fortnightly, monthly basis, all to the government. You know, they collect all of that, and now they're asking us to collect more as from ratepayers. It's just something needs to change. I'm getting really, well, I'm not the only one. We need to start pushing back because they've got this money from every wage and salary earner, plus everybody else. And, it's just, it's not a question, it's just a.
Just a kind of a grump.
It's the backing up of our national body who is advocating on our behalf, but you're right, you know, like and how much more can we push back? It doesn't feel like the funding and financing, because we haven't really had any solutions there whatsoever. We just have more and more cost. So yeah, totally this report. I'm happy to know that. Yes.
Is there any pushback on that 86,000? So you might comment.
So we've got a regional submission that's not due till the 20th of January, I think. So we've still got time to basically get it sorted. We are working on a regional submission currently, which we'll be bringing back for the mayors as well to get sorted. But certainly like pushing back to say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
It's open for consultation, councillor, and so they're seeking feedback on it. They got some feedback at the rural and provincial meeting a few weeks ago too.
So I was about to say then, so that is that you, Ms. Budge, that you will take that on our behalf? There is a number of advocacy points there and there, and so yeah, any opportunity, basically we're quite reliant on you being able to pull it together, because none of us are all going to write a letter individually, but whether or not you could actually circulate something to us, that would be awesome.
LGNZ's provided a template. All we have to do is put our name and our numbers in.
No, yeah, yeah. When it goes, would you be able to just let us know that it has gone and send us a copy of it? That would be amazing. And also, if there is anything else in that report that you think actually we could be helping to endorse, when nobody's in the scheme of things, sometimes in it, you know, and against the big councils, but I think, you know, we need to be really have a voice. It's great, yeah. All right, so recommendation that the Strategy Growth and Community notes the LGNZ 4-monthly report for members dated 1st of July to the 1st of October 2024. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Thank you, Councillor Muggeridge. Would you guys like to speak to it? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. Okay, so the date of the next meeting is going to be the 27th of March 2024. That we will have in the early in the year, which is quite good. So we'll probably no doubt get some updates on those workshop items in this meeting if anybody is interested online. So can I have the mover for the recommendation for the next date?
Can I just ask questions and where have we got availability for public to come speak to us? Are they workshop meetings or committee meetings?
Council meeting.
Council meetings.
For a council meeting, yeah. So
5 minutes, they have to apply within 3
3
working
days.
days.
So just a note to the public, if you are watching, that if you do want to come and talk to us, then you can basically call up council and ask for to be included in the public forum, which is a time allocated before every council meeting. So it's definitely available to everybody.
Thank you.
Awesome. So you happy to recommend that? Okay, and thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. And we're going to close the meeting now at 11:25.